agenda, of course, is to call the meeting to order. The second item is adoption of the consent agenda, which consist of the meeting minutes from the Executive Committee of July 11th. We've had an opportunity to look at those minutes. Do I have a motion to either accept or modify the minutes?
I make a motion the minutes be accepted with any necessary corrections.
Got a motion from Mr. Reader to accept those minutes with no known corrections at this time, seconded by Mr. Livingston. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Okay, the adoption, deletion, changes to this agenda, this meeting's agenda. And at this time, I think, Mr. Inglesi, you wanted to make some changes to our agenda this evening.
Mr. Chairman, number 4, if we can defer that to the next committee meeting. We're still working on putting some data together for committee, and we're not quite ready.
Okay. Do we have a problem with deferring that?
No.
Second.
Okay.
And we'll keep number 5. I'll just make a brief statement on behalf of Ms. Winters regarding number 5, so it can stay where it is.
Okay. All right, with that being said, do we have any other changes, deletions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. And so now we move on to item number 5, which is an update regarding the amendments to the Newberry County Employee Handbook. Ms. Winters is not with us, so Mr. Inglesi, I think you're going to just
Yes,
make a
sir.
quick statement.
Just briefly, we wanted to take this opportunity to brief executive committee on the work that's being done to update the employee handbook. Ms. Winters is an expert in employment law, and we're glad to have her on board. And while we have her on retainer with the county, this is a great opportunity for her to work with our HR director. I've provided committee with a memorandum from legal counsel making some recommendations for changes to the handbook, and so we'll be working over the next weeks and months to get those changes in draft form and bring them back to committee at an appropriate time. I think the suggestion has been made that because there's so many recommended changes that perhaps a work session in the future would be a good way of handling a deep dive into the recommended changes. So we'll try and work towards that goal.
Okay. And certainly we'll need full council's involvement, and a work session might be appropriate, so you can keep us abreast of that. Item number 6 on our agenda is discussion of Planning Department Organizational Chart, GIS position. Ms. Wirtz, Ron Powell, Ms. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I believe each of you has a copy of the organizational chart in front of you for our 2 departments. On that first page is the current level of employees in these 2 departments. Of course, you can see that we have the building official, department head, and in the building department, we have Miss Virginia, who does all the permits and all the paperwork. So there's two of us on staff in that department. And in the zoning and planning department, we have 3 employees. We have Katie, she's the zoning administrator. She does all the planning work. We have Bridget, she is stormwater inspector. Bridget also does zoning inspections and some other work on different committees, Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals. She's the secretary for both of those. And she keeps up with that paperwork and keeps that organized. The purpose of my coming before you tonight is to draw attention to what we believe is a current need in our 2 departments. If it's okay with you, I'll start with the building department. Of course, I think each one of you already knows that I am the only inspector for the county. And I wanted to bring to your attention the second page, if you would please turn to that second page. That shows our construction permits all the way from 2011 to 2021. You can see the orange line shows the increase as the years have gone by. And so permits have steadily picked up as the years have gone by. And so along with that, so has the inspections. And if I may, I didn't put it in your packet, but if I may, I would like to give you a copy of our monthly report for the first 3 months of this budget year. Let me do that. And this report, of course, outlines our total functions of the department, but I have highlighted in the yellow the total number of inspections for each month. And starting in July, we were at 281 site inspections. Now, those inspections, that includes all inspections, building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, all inspections, mobile homes. So I haven't divided that out into weekly or dailies, but that's a considerable amount of inspections that have to be accomplished each day. I'm out and about in the county probably most days 6 hours a day out riding. So I'm back in the office usually somewhere around 2 to 3 o'clock. And so, of course, I leave at 9. I take my phone calls in the morning at 8:30, and I do my planning my route, and I leave about 9 each morning. And so I'm out and about most of the day each day. So I wanted to point out to you that it is getting extremely busy, and I do need help in our department with an inspector. And also, if you look at that number of inspections, that also includes, like I said, mobile homes as well. We have quite a few of those that come through. And in that monthly report, you can see the number of mobile home permits, site inspections, plan review. Also, I have to get my plan review done as they come in. So it limits my time to not having much time left to take a special request to do a courtesy inspection. So courtesy inspections are almost something that I can't even get to. I had a request today from a builder, Gage Construction, wanted me to come out and look at a set of stairs for him. And I said, you need to take some pictures and bring those in the office and meet me at 8:30 because I really don't have time to come out and meet you on site, just to look at that special request for you. But I want to help you, but I think you understand and see the point I'm making with the number of inspections and where we're at. I would like at some point, and I would hope it would be sometime next year, to get an inspector on staff. For a couple of reasons I'm getting on up in age a little bit, so I'd like to sort of stand down a little bit from some of my duties. I also have these planning and zoning duties too. So I'd like to stand down a little bit and bring somebody on board that could help me and sort of work their way into the building official role as time goes by. And so I'd like you to consider that as well when you're thinking about it. So, and that is in the building department. And I will say that when I started as a contract inspector back in 2011, there was 2 people in the department then, and when I came, I made the 3rd person. And then later on, as time went by, Mr. Adams decided to terminate the other inspector. So that put us back down to 2 people in the department.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
on this building inspector, which again, looking at the numbers, And now you don't do inside the city limits, yours is all outside, so everything you do has windshield time to get to and from.
Yeah, everything outside city limits, yeah.
I think it's pretty evident you need somebody. What kind of salary would that position like that run?
With a qualified person that's ready to go to work, I would say at least 50.
All right, number two, we have a contract with somebody to help you, correct?
Safe bill, yes, sir.
What is that running a year just to support? How much money is in the budget for that, or how much do we generally run through a year to?
I didn't put those numbers together for tonight, for one reason. You know, I was not here for the first 3 months of the year, so I didn't. They were working full-time then. They were working the entire program then.
I guess
So-
the direction where I'm going is, that money that we're spending already for just assistance when needed, along with the increased revenue flow put together, potentially could be almost negate
Yes,
each
sir.
other to the
Yeah.
point if we added that as a position.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that point to you. Currently, our contract with Safe Built is for $250 trip charge and 1 hour of work, $250. $65 for each hour after that. So when they come out and they stay 5 or 6 hours, we're looking at anywhere between $600 and $800 a day for them. So it gets very expensive. And I will add that they're currently working on the Day Young project. They're doing those inspections for us. Because I cannot get to all of them. Day Young has a lot of regular inspections that are reoccurring over and over. Not so much now, but they did at the beginning of the project with concrete pours every day. Different things like that, so.
Well, Ron, you got a great reputation from all the contractors that I talk with across the county. Your response time has been good, but you are only one person, and I think it's pretty evident that with the numbers increasing like they have been over the past 2 or 3 years, I think it's pretty evident we could probably have to have somebody for your sanity, for the quality of it. Because those contractors, a day like tomorrow, the next day when they call in for rain, if they got the footings poured, they want somebody out there to know whether they can do it instead of having that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, y'all, I don't know, y'all know I'm not one that likes to spend money, but this is one of those situations where I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of choice.
And I would like to add one more point to what you just said. Currently, today, we're scheduling next week's inspections. That's how far behind we are. Next week.
And I know some of the contractors have been used to calling you in the morning and having you out there in the afternoon in the past too.
Yeah. Yeah, one of our things we always took pride in was being able to take a request before 2 today and have it on the schedule tomorrow. And we can't do that now.
When, time-wise, I know the answer to this. You need this yesterday?
Yes, sir.
So this is not something that we can defer until next budget year?
Well, we can, but is it gonna cost us more to defer it by using
The
Safe
contract
Built?
services.
Yeah, the contracted services may end up being more costly than just doing it. Or, I guess here's the thing I would probably be willing to suggest. I don't say that we go out and just rush and hire somebody, but if you happen to stumble across somebody who fits the bill, we need to probably go ahead and look at securing that person. If we have to go into
Got a
reserve
good,
funds or cancel contingency and get it done,
You already got people in mind, maybe?
Yes, sir, I do. Local person too, and qualified.
that means a lot.
And I will add that to try to work out the schedule, I live in Greenwood. I do all the Silver Street Chapels inspections on the way in or either on the way home, because that's a long trip up there, and it works out better to do it that way.
The individual or individuals you're thinking about, do they live on the other part of the side of the county?
Yes, sir, they do.
Meet in the middle.
Yeah. Is this something that you and the administrator can sit down and figure out how we can make this work monetarily? Or have you already done that to go with a hire so that we don't affect our current budget? And do we have the money? Where can we get it? How can we get it?
We don't have all the answers to those questions. This is the first step. The next step would be to have council approve. We got according to our policy, a full-time employee position has to be approved by council.
I just don't think, I think in order to get council approval, you're gonna have to have that information.
If we're talking
Know
about-
where the money's coming from, and if you have that information, and we can, swing it in our current budget, then I think that's a long way toward getting council approval.
And by the time any action was taken, we'd be halfway into the fiscal year. And the only thing that comes to my mind is probably a budget amendment and using fund balance to get through this year and then budgeting the position for next year. But we'd only be dipping into reserve for half the year to fund the position.
And we technically wouldn't be dipping totally into it for a half a year because you already have what you have for contracted services in an account that could be
Right.
shifted over to cover
Right.
a part of it anyway, because.
Yeah. And we can maintain or keep that contract for Safe Built, even though we're not using them, we can still keep them for backup in case something happens.
But I guess what I'm saying is we could use part of the money that's already set aside for them, keep the contract, but if we get somebody, we shouldn't need to call them
That's right.
near as much.
Mr. Reader, what are your thoughts on all this?
I know he needs the additional help because I've seen him in action, and I'm quite sure that it is difficult for him to keep up with the load that he has. And so I know the position has been needed a while. Yeah, so I'd definitely be for it.
And a familiar face running out on these sites that we actually have employed by the county is gonna be better than somebody that's contracted.
Okay, I think you got, that was the building inspector.
Yes, sir. One more
You want to keep
department.
going?
Yes, sir, if I may. Planning and zoning. I told you about our 3 employees in planning and zoning. Of course, Katie leads that group. She's our zoning administrator. She does a great job. Katie struggles as well, and I should say the whole department struggles. The best example I can give you is about a month ago, we had a couple of people out. We had one that had a planned vacation that was out for a few days. We had another one that was at a conference, which was planned for a long time. And when we have people out like that, we struggle a little bit, but we get by. We make it. But the problem that occurred then is we had one of our employees come down with COVID too. So we ended up, what I had to do was I had to bring, I always bring Lori over to our department to do permits for us when Virginia's out. Well, Lori couldn't leave. She was the only person in the planning and zoning department. She had to stay there. So I had to stay in the office to do the permits and phone calls and scheduling. I had to call Safe Built to back us up on inspections. So we were down to 2 people in the department. And so the reason I tell you that is there's 3 people in planning and zoning, but we need someone that's going to manage. We need a planner. We need someone that's going to manage the comprehensive plan, that's going to manage the development that we have coming. That I talked to a developer today from Greenville, and he wanted to know, he sent a FOIA request, and we're already working on the FOIA request, but he said that they're planning on coming in with some new development on a residential project. It's difficult for Katie to do all that when she is meeting with contractors and homeowners on what they can put on their property. Lori can give them the zoning information, the basic zoning district, but Lori's the permit clerk. She doesn't give out all the detailed information out of the zoning code. That's up to Katie to do that. Bridget has some information, some abilities to do that. Bridget's like me. She's out on inspections, doing zoning inspections, stormwater inspections, so she's out about the same amount of time each day I am. So Lori's doing the permits, and Katie's dealing with the people that come through the office with all these questions. Katie does all the plat review to make sure that those plats meet our zoning code, our land regulations too. And so the staffing issue there is if we had someone to take these developments, take the comprehensive plan, which of course we're in the middle of that right now, to rework our comprehensive plan. And then every 5 years we have to renew it. If we had another person in the planning and zoning department, we could relieve some of that stress off of these three ladies, because I want you to understand that when Virginia's out, for whatever reason, she may be out vacation or sick or whatever it is, we have to pull Lori out the zoning department to come over and do building permits. When Bridget's out inspecting, that leaves Katie by herself in that department all day long. And I'll be honest with you, there has been times when we've had to close for lunch. I hate to tell you that, but we do. We do have to do that sometimes, and that's just the nature of where we are. And I hate it when somebody comes in and there's not someone to take them and serve, whatever their request is. So I would like to request that as well. Now, there's a lot of advantages. I think I can point out some of them, having a planner. Some of those would be, of course, dealing with long-range planning, projected growth, development trends, some different things that come up with the comprehensive plan, managing planning studies and development applications. A planner could make the recommendations to the planning commission and deal with the planning commission as their requests come up. So there's a lot of area there that we could cover if we could divide that duty up between what Katie has to do and what a planner would do. And I would like to say also that we're in a similar situation with being able to pay for this because we have a consultant on staff, on retainer. It's costing us about $80,000 just for our comprehensive plan. Just for our comprehensive plan. And that doesn't include what we use the consultant for, on an as-needed basis. So there's money there. Not quite as much as in the building department if we got rid of or stopped using our third-party company, but there's money there to offset that sum.
And how much would this position cost us per?
I don't have that information. I don't know.
To recruit an experienced senior planner, the position that we've been discussing is a senior planner, so not an entry-level planner, but somebody with some planning experience in a growing community, be at least in the 70s, low 70s. You could certainly find a planner in the 60s, but probably not with the requisite experience that would really benefit the department.
Okay, the consultant for the comp plan That's already approved in our budget.
Yes, sir.
That comp plan that the consultant was gonna create, that's more than just manpower, though. That's gonna, is that correct, or is that the actual document? They're gonna produce the document?
Yes, sir. They're gonna come up with a comprehensive plan, but there's a lot of meetings involved with that and a lot.
Right. So is this person you're talking about hiring a senior planner, they're gonna take over all of those responsibilities for managing all the input from stakeholders and accumulating that and documenting it and creating and binding a document that's a comprehensive plan?
Sir,
Well,
yes, sir. That's my understanding, and
The consultant that's on retainer now would complete the comprehensive plan. So by the time her retainer is spent in this fiscal year's budget, they will have produced the comprehensive plan in its final form, presented to Planning Commission and to County Council. The planner's role in between the 5-year update and the 10-year rewrite would be to implement the goals and objectives that are adopted by council.
So we wouldn't really be saving that $80,000 this year for the
no, sir, not
consultant?
not this year, no, sir.
It's in this year's budget. The thought would be if we retain that in the department budget, it would be applied to a full-time employee next year instead, and when we won't have a need for a consultant.
All right. I think it's clearer to me now.
I think our hourly rate for our consultant is $70 an hour, what we pay for our consultant.
I mean, I think it's a position that's needed. It's just not as clear where the money would come from right now on this one as it is on the other one. Unless somebody's got some light that I don't have.
And we wouldn't, I don't think we're seeking to implement that this year, but more getting feedback or agreement from committee that as we go into budget season for next year, we would plan to keep that money in the department's budget for the purpose of funding a planner position for next fiscal year.
So just for my clarification of understanding, the building inspector you'd like to move forward with now, the senior planner would be a position that we would fill next year under next year's budget.
That's correct. That's what staff and administration is recommending.
Okay. Any comments, more comments?
I'm okay with the TBD, to be determined.
All right, well, obviously,
I tell you one thing, I do have a concern. I hear the word senior planner, this, that, and the other, but I don't want to go out here and hire somebody that's a whole lot more than what we already got paying over there and create morale problems because we brought somebody in at such a higher.
yeah, I
And-
agree with that, but I guess
And
we
we've
may,
made some decisions and paid some extreme salaries, and we ain't got what we thought we were gonna get either. So I just want to make sure that we get what we want, and we get what we get when we get this time.
but from, I guess, moving out of this committee, since that one's something that's going to be in the future, next year's budget, coming immediately out of our committee meeting tonight, do I have a motion to recommend to full council that we hire a building inspector, given the information can be provided, how the funding of that position will be, and that would be brought before full council at whenever administration's prepared. Do I have a motion to do that?
I'll support that motion.
Got a motion, a second, all in favor, aye? Aye. So you have that support moving forward to go ahead and look for funding and defining that position, and the other one, we'll wait till next budget
Thank you.
cycle. All right. Now, we had Katie and Liz. Are y'all deferring to what Ron's said, or?
We're going to talk about the GIS position a little bit before we leave this item, if that's okay.
Okay.
And I think the PowerPoint, if you click through one more slide, Ron didn't quite get there, but this is the direction that has been discussed tonight. The highlights are the positions that were discussed tonight. You can see up there, code enforcement is something that there have been comments from council about, so a possible future code enforcement position. And then we've had several internal discussions about Bob Beard's retirement, which is scheduled for December, early December, if I'm not. So we've been meeting, and we have some ideas, but we wanted to kind of talk to committee about sort of what we thought was an opportunity in light of that retirement. So.
Thank you for having us and giving us the opportunity to talk about the GIS position. Bob Beard does fall under the assessor's office. Do you have that real quick? You can see.
Do we have a hard copy of these slides?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, currently, he's right up there, he's all by his onesie over there, he doesn't have a staff. He is what's called a GIS analyst. And in terms of a GIS analyst, he's more of a mapper. You know, he creates maps and he creates layers, but he doesn't really analyze the data. And I think if we think about Ron's presentation as in terms of the growth of the building permits, and if we look at our parcel counts by year, we're seeing the same things happening. We're trending up as we go along. We look like about 2018 to 2020, we stayed at a little under, a 0.5% growth. Then in 2021, we doubled it almost. We had a 7% growth, and then in 2022, this past year, we had a 1.3% growth in the number of parcels. That's all a direct reflection of everything Ron is talking about in terms of building. We also have boundary changes by year, parcel boundary changes. Those are, I can't figure out what happened in 2021. Bob wasn't available for me to find out why we had that little dip, but you see how we've got action going on with the parcels in Newberry County. Again, that's just suggesting that growth is coming our way. Whether we, it's just it's gradual. It's just trending up as we go, and we're going to need somebody that's knowledgeable of this growth. And when we talk about GIS, this is our Newberry GIS site. When you look at it, if you're looking in terms of economic development, if I'm a citizen and I want to move here from North Carolina, I want to know more about it, this is what we offer. It's really just an aerial view, very static, and this is just, Bob does not have the skill set to develop a web page or something that would produce what we need out there. What we have, y'all are gracious enough to help us out this year in budgeting. This is Lancaster, South Carolina's GIS site. You can see on the left-hand side of the page, you have all these new layers. So if I'm somebody like Rip Farmer, I could now suggest that, hey, why don't you go look at this web page and take a look at what's going on with our county. You see how it says terrain right there? It's got flow lines, it's got rivers, it's got lakes, but then it talks about floodplain, floodplain, contour lines. Contour lines are extremely important when you're talking commercial development, or like Ron said, he had to, he's got somebody from Greenville calling in looking for you, want to come in and do some development. That's important to those guys and gals too that are doing that development. What does the land look like? One thing, if we go back to our map that's important, is the zoning. Folks need to know what things are zoned. I think if we go back and think back to the Rolling Hills, last fall, when they came through, and we had that zoning discrepancy there, and it caused a lot of angst at council meetings that really drug things out, whereas if you could just pop up a map like this and put it up there, you could clearly, quickly see what those zoning layers are doing and be able to answer questions easily for folks. And again, we're talking about a county that appears to have statistics showing that it's moving and developing into something that we probably weren't expecting to happen quite like it is right now. But what I was here and wanted to talk to you about, and Christopher, and been talking with Christopher and Katie and HR, our GIS analyst Bob is retiring in December of 2022. Bob didn't necessarily birth GIS for Newberry County, but he's been incredibly instrumental in getting it from the ground up to where it is today. And so it's now really about us taking the next step. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of departments are in Newberry right now, ready to take that next step. To try and prepare for this, we've been training current staff up to take some of the pressure off of it once Bob retires. We would like to promote a staff member right now to what's called a GIS technician. There's someone who can read deeds, they can read plats, they can do research history of parcel data and things like that. So we've got that, in the assessor's office, we've got it covered in terms of mapping out new parcels, putting a subdivision in and things like that. We've got that covered. But what we don't have covered, and I don't know what, this is where Christopher might want to pick up with a GIS type manager, somebody with the tech skills to do a little more glorified work that can manage technical GIS technical type positions. That's just something we're lacking right now. With something like a GIS manager, now we're talking about integrating and consolidating services. And one big thing right now is the Sheriff's Department uses a program with WTH GIS software, Think GIS. Our appraisers use it in the field, but we don't use it in the office. And I'm going to go back and kind of piggyback on what Ron was talking about, going out in the field and doing inspections.
I'm gonna break you just a minute. I told them I have to leave for another commitment,
Okay.
but I like some of the things that you're saying, but one of the things that I do have a concern about, when you go to putting floodlines and floodplains on there, whether it be the river, whether it be the lake, whatever, I don't want us to put too much out there that it becomes a liability on the county and say, I got this from the county website, and then we're also now liable. So
Yeah.
that's gonna take some
Right,
future
I
discussion.
think there have been court cases on that support that we can have that data out there as long as we have the proper disclaimers and things out there such as that. I've actually been involved in a county that has gone through that, where a developer did make some judgment on what was happening based on what he thought he saw on a map, and it came to find out that was not the case, but the county was not liable for that. I believe there's ways to do that, but I think we'd be in a not as good position by not having it out there. I think we're isolating ourselves from the rest of the world. Not that we want everybody here and knocking on our door, but we're really isolating ourselves. But when I talk about the integrating and consolidating services, Ron talks about mapping his route out. Well, with GIS isn't just mapping, it's analysis. So now Ron could go out and we could have the permits on layers that correspond with each parcel. And so what you could do is, with a building permit, you could code it green when it's first issued. So Ron could now have all the permits light up in green all over the county, and he could quickly see where he needs to concentrate his efforts. Then he could have, once he's made his initial inspections, he could have them light up in yellow. So here's all my yellow ones, the ones that I've seen in the last 30 days. Once it's closed, once the CO's been issued, then they light up in red. So now as council members, you'd be able to turn on a map and say, hey, this is where all the development's happening in the county. You know, we thought it was all happening down here on the lake. Well, lo and behold, it's happening in the city and just outside, you know, maybe a little bit east of here. So those are the things we're looking at from a GIS manager, somebody that can help us do that. What we're also looking at is with Bob's retirement is maybe moving away from a current GIS software we have provided by Esri. Esri is the industry standard when it comes to GIS software. And when you're talking about the industry standard, you're talking about an expensive software. So with this and providing and consolidating services, I don't know if I got there real clear, but if we went to something like and piggybacked off the sheriff's department, what their office, what they're using with this Think GIS, we might be able to reduce some costs. We also would reduce costs with VC3 if we change some of this software once Bob retires. And this is very troubling to Bob because Bob feels like, you know, we've got this Cadillac, we shouldn't, you know, go now down to the Ford Taurus. We should be in our Cadillac. But we're not quite ready for that Cadillac. And if we look at some of the costs right now that we have associated with it, Bob's annual salary is about $47,600 a year. That's about $24 an hour. I think if you look around, we've got a pretty good bargain going right there. Because Bob puts in a full 7.5 hours a day, and he's not just responsible for mapping parcels, he's responsible for helping out with the Think GIS software over at the sheriff's department. He's responsible for helping map this. He, you know, in a small county, small community, he's helping the city out sometimes with their GIS. I mean, he's doing a lot of extra work in the county, so we're getting our money's worth out of him. But with Bob and the lack of his technical knowledge, we also have to hire a company called AECom. They provide GIS support and administration. So when Bob doesn't know the technical things that need to be done, we're going to call on GIS for that. We're budgeted for $28,600, but we haven't really been using all of that. The tech support, we are budgeted about $4,500 from AECom, same company, and we do maximize that each year, and then there's a $2,000 programming support. We also have the Esri software, and licensing, which is about $16,500 a year. So right now, we're spending close to $100,000 on GIS, and if we go back to here, we're not really getting our bang for our buck. So what I would like to see is that we promote from within our GIS tech. She's currently an ownership type specialist, customer service representative for a reasonable salary. I don't know what that is right off the bat. But then I'd like to turn it over to Christopher, if you will, Christopher, to talk a little bit more about this money that's available to hire somebody that's in a tech, more advanced position that could be more of a leadership position within the mapping and GIS that the county needs.
So when we met with Bob, he identified several projects that were that GIS is capable of doing. Some of them are called like snapshot maps, where you can look at a specific thing of interest, like parks or boat landings could be mapped, and that map could be easily available on our website. So, and there's several other examples that he gave. The street project was a project that is not complete, so the GIS system doesn't have a complete database of all of the roads and road system in the county. So, and he identified other projects that he's been working on or have been ongoing. So this is definitely a position that should continue and offers a great value to the county. and to the public that has free access to it. But, you know, Esri has a lot of tools that we don't take advantage of. So what we've learned as we've dived into this is that the sheriff's software may be a software that we can sort of streamline, because right now there's this extra effort that has to happen between the data from Esri that's used on this side of the county house and the data at the sheriff's office, and there's this back and forth of data that has to happen, and that is inefficient and takes a lot of time and can be cumbersome. So we've been gathering information from that to see if it makes sense, even though it's not a Cadillac product, does it serve all of our needs? And we've reached out, Liz has reached out to at least one other jurisdiction that's using that product on both sides for public safety and for assessor and planning and zoning. And we got a positive review from there on the product. We got a brief demo recently, yesterday I think it was, and we're continuing to get more information to see if that makes sense. If it does make sense, it likely will result in some savings. We don't have all the numbers in any detail, but we certainly would come back to Finance Committee or to county with more detail. But the thought would be that whatever savings we were able to realize would be added to the current salary so that we could hire up a manager. And this manager is important because they would actually, Liz's office would have a technician that can do some GIS tasks. The sheriff's office has a technician that can do some GIS tasks, 911 addressing and other things. But GIS in Public Works is something that we're not doing now, and in Tommy's office in Public Safety, there's GIS tools that could be available to him. And with this manager level that has sort of this global technical skill, we could really make use of this program, of this software, in other areas of the county that can utilize the tool, just to name a few. So to get there, for the budgeted salary is not going to get us a manager-type person. This person would manage all of those areas of GIS, but also manage and be the liaison to our contractor, the vendor, who would be doing the parcel splits and who would be doing sort of the back end work to keep GIS available to the public on our website, and all the things that are being done right now by 3 different companies, by WTH, by AECOM, and by Esri. And if we can just consolidate and get to one vendor, that will very likely result in enough savings to get the salary, to add to the salary, to pursue a manager type of a GIS expert that can really take us to the next level.
I think what you find with these companies like a WTH or a Schneider company that helps with our website is that they manage everything. They have the experts right there. They have those high-level paid technical folks on staff that can do this work fairly easily. And what I'm finding also from these companies is that the support is just, the response time is so quick because they are used to dealing with smaller municipalities. So for what you get at a reduced, I'm going to say a reduced cost, once you compress the AECOM, the Esri, and even VC3 is part of that factoring in there, that you get a great bang for your buck with these.
And one final thought for your consideration is we showed the future org chart for planning and zoning, and it's been my experience, and Liz and I have talked about this at length, and I've talked with planning staff about this, but having GIS in planning and zoning makes a lot of sense because GIS is going to be touching, the vision for the future would be that GIS would be touching, many more parts of the county organization, other departments, and so planning is a good central location that can, be a hub and be a liaison and, work with public safety, work with public works to get these tools to help them do their jobs. And so as long as Liz has a technician a technical person in her office, to assist with GIS tasks. That's sufficient for the assessor's office. Same for the sheriff's office, but we really need this manager who can kind of spread that skill and spread that vision throughout the organization and bring these tools in GIS that we're kind of underutilizing today, but there's so much opportunity to do more with. And even WTH, even though it's not the Cadillac, there's plenty of tools that will be available to us. So we just want to just kind of share our thinking at this point, share our internal discussions and sort of the direction that we're heading in.
Okay, I guess from what I'm gathering from this is just an information session at this point. There's not really an actionable item coming out of this committee for council at this time.
Well, we're looking for some clarity on, this is the direction we would like to go in. We've worked on a job description for a manager position, and we want to start advertising that. That will require some additional funds beyond what's currently budgeted, but we believe we can get there by going through this consolidation and streamlining process with our softwares, with our software companies.
Well, it also seems as though a key to this is cooperation and with the sheriff's office. Have you already had discussions with the sheriff on
Yes, sir.
this consolidation, and is he on board and in agreement?
Very, very much so. The idea that this data would flow seamlessly back and forth, very much so.
They've been involved in discussions, and they are very much an advocate for the software that is serving them, and are encouraging us to, as a county, use one product.
Are we looking at, I noticed that the amount being spent now is $99,200. Are we looking at around the same figure, or are we looking at a higher figure?
I think we should be able to do it within the confines of the existing numbers. I don't think we don't know yet because we don't have an estimate on what it would cost for us to convert the planning and assessor side to WTH. We're working on getting those numbers, but we do know that it will be some savings. We just don't know exactly how much, but our commitment would be to work within a salary that keeps us within the existing dollars being spent.
I think one of the biggest places that we would, in this current fiscal year, would be that GIS support administration. That money, I would venture to guess, would not max out or come to fruition. Yes, we might need some tech support from them, but I don't even know that we would use all that money that's been allotted for AECOM, because you'd get the tech support and web support from these other companies. And essentially, we're already budgeted really for the WTH software, because we have 4 licenses for our appraisers. They use the GIS, the base layer of the parcel data to build on for their layers. From our discussions with WTH, it seems like it's a very user-friendly product. It's just like today, we could probably never imagine using a computer for what we use it for today. They've made it so user-friendly that it sounds like, I don't know if it's too good to be true, but the sheriff's department, the office has been using it, that we could build some of these layers that you pay high-dollar tech folks to do, that they've developed the software to make it so that just us individuals can do some of this work and not have to continually pay for these high-level tech positions.
We wouldn't be creating a new FTE, but we would change their classification. I'm not sure if we need council approval to do that. It's an existing FTE. If we reclass it within our budget constraints, I think we could do that at the administrative level, but obviously we want council support and committee support to move in that direction. And we were ready to get advertised, but we wanted to get to this meeting and at least hear, that we had committee support to move in that direction.
Yeah, you have my support, as long as we're not, going over what we already using. That's, yeah, I'm with improvements.
Absolutely, and if we can, the fewer different types of software that have to communicate with each other, the better off we are. So if we've got one software that can meet the needs of the sheriff's office, emergency services, and also assessor's office, then that's a better thing, provided it will meet everybody's needs. So at this point, are you just requesting the committee to support going forward to better, I'm going to say, find funding and specifics of how we would implement this software change?
I think we can take it as information only, and we would come back to you if, for whatever reason, this goes even $1 over what has been presented. We would commit to coming back to committee with that new information. But absent that, we would move forward administratively in the direction that we've presented tonight.
Since this does cross administration boundaries into another, an elected official's responsibilities, I would like, whenever you've reached a decision, I would like to see that both all departments that are interfacing be available and present their recommendations harmoniously to council so that we make sure everybody's in agreement and on board. Okay,
All right.
we good?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. All right, does that complete all items on agenda item 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Agenda item 7, we're going to talk about facilities, the DHEC building. Mike Pisano.
Thank you, gentlemen. When Urban West left, I took over building maintenance in July, and I was provided with a 5-year capital plan. And one of the items that we looked at internally was DSS DHEC building, and the projected expenditure over the 5-year period came in at $430,000. So on the second page, if you look, there's a breakdown by year of each of those items. And we've got roof replacement at $250,000, parking lot improvements at $125,000, office carpet at $30,000, and HVAC at $25,000. I'm sure you're all familiar with the building, and I've been familiar with the flooding issues that we've had during my tenure, and I've had anecdotal evidence provided to me about how the building has always been in a low-lying area, always been wet, always been a problem. So we looked at this almost $500,000 projection and questioned whether that's a smart expenditure of county funds, whether we need to keep putting money into this building or whether it would be wise to relocate to another building and get this one off of the county, off the county's inventory. And, some of these numbers I looked at real quick, and I will be honest with you, the one that I know more about than any of the others is the pavement. And just a quick look at the numbers and the square yardage, that 125,000 works out to about $11.50 a square yard, which is very conservative just for an overlay. In my opinion, we'd need to go in there, have an engineering study done for underground drainage to make sure that that drains properly. That would involve engineering costs, obviously, and then your construction costs to build the drainage system. One of the options that we've discussed internally is moving the offices out of that, or I should say the departments out of that building, DSS and DHEC, over to Newberry Square, where we do have quite a bit of space available. The DSS building currently has approximately 22,000 square feet. We estimate that we could free up 12 to 13,000 square feet in Newberry Square. Now, we have not spoken to DSS or DHEC to find out what their needs are, whether they actually need all 22,000 square feet that they're using. But we just wanted to bring this to the committee's attention, let you know that this is what we're talking about. We're not looking for any action on this, but we just wanted to introduce you to the idea and hopefully get some feedback.
Mike, I would think this is going to be part of our long-range facilities plan and may even be part of the comprehensive plan for facilities if there's a section within that. I don't know if our comprehensive plan has anything about county facilities or whether or not we'll have our own facilities plan.
We included it in our recommendations to be in the plan, and I think we did. It's in there, okay. So our discussions led to informing the consultant doing the plan that this was one of the
What would
capital
we do
improvement
if this-
projects.
What will we do with this building if we abandon it?
My recommendation would be to sell it either as is or as an improvable building.
I'm surprised we actually using the building now, because I know the problems that they had when Winn-Dixie was there with all the water and.
That's what I was talking about with the anecdotal evidence.
It's, in talking to Irvin and just sort of getting his perspective, this is a building that staff desires unloading off of our inventory for several reasons. One of them is the drainage in the parking lot, but we've got ADA non-compliance issues in the parking lot, in the entrances to the building. And you can see just sort of the baseline expense. And we pushed it out to year 3, 4, and 5, but really these are things that we ought to be doing in the next year or two. But I didn't want to budget for improvements on the property if council agrees that this is a property we should unload. I love the idea of DHEC and DSS being in the Newberry Square, and really the purpose of this is to say, should we go to the next step, which would be having a meeting with them and talking to them about how this might work and the feasibility of it. But I love the idea of them being in Newberry Square and the synergy of them with the students and with the VA, the Veterans Affairs, and Election Office, and SC Works right there. I just think all that activity and energy will really round out, and it will fill that space and make it, if you haven't been there, I would love to take council members that haven't been there, because we've got several thousand square feet of prime real estate that's ready to be used, and we believe this would be the best use of that space.
Now, weren't we talking about that space being used for something dealing with recreation?
So at the end, there's a green grassy field at the end of it, and that's where Jesse has been proposing the fitness court. And so another synergistic, positive benefit to that area, once it's filled out, and then having the fitness court there and the students coming and going, and the clients of DHEC and DSS coming and going, and having the fitness court with the Department of Health and Environment. I mean, all that great synergy. This is an opportunity to fill out that building and unload sort of an albatross on our inventory.
Sounds like something definitely worth looking into. I think before council would be willing to go forward with it, we would clearly have to understand space needs, the cost of upfitting in the Newberry Square area, the cost of, what we think we could get for the building. I mean, there's always a possibility that we end up having to pay for demolition of the building if no one buys it. So there could be some salvage costs associated with abandonment. But all that needs to, I think those details would be something that would be looked into.
Yes, sir. Well, this was our first step. We just
Yeah.
wanted to get some
This is great.
feedback, and we can certainly
Yeah.
do all that and hopefully move forward.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Mike. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion of the slogan on signage entering the county. And I think we got some color paper here with those signs on it. We've all seen those signs.
And I recognize that this may not be of the highest priority for where we are, but I was asked to engage council in a discussion, and so I'm following through on my promise to do that. I guess what was brought to my attention that the slogan maybe doesn't work anymore, or maybe there's something better or something different, that a place to visit, a place to live, maybe worked when it was placed, but now maybe something different could be considered. Whether it's as simple as something that says, welcome to Newberry County, and we drop the slogan, or we go through a process of coming up with a new slogan. And I'm not sure where committee or council has considered this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention and see how you'd like us to proceed, if at all.
Yeah, I truly think it's time to change that. Yeah, we all know it's a place to live. We need to come up with something better, more dramatic. Yeah, so that'll be the first thing they see when they come into the county.
I got a question. I think these signs are paid for by the state, are they not? And put there, or are
Like-
they?
Do we make those signs?
I don't know. I know we have a couple signs left that are brand new. I don't know who paid for them.
Debbie?
Because, Debbie?
They were initially paid by the accommodations tax committee, but shortly after those signs were paid for, it's in the guidelines that you cannot use that money from accommodations tax for what they call welcome signs.
Oh, wow.
See, the reason I asked that question was we may be limited in size. I mean, the state may have some size limitations about a sign, because this is our county sign, right? I mean, this is the sign that's the county line. You go one direction, you see Lexington County, the other direction, you see welcome to a place to visit and a place to live. So I don't know how much latitude we have in signage.
You're right. It would require, if it's a state road, it would require an encroachment permit, and that would probably limit the size of the sign. But specifically, the text on, the slogan, a place to visit, a place to live, that's something that county council has control over. If that's the slogan that you want to change, or go through a process and get some public input and maybe even do a contest and, have the public submit ideas and have a committee of council kind of filter them down to, 3 or 5, and then have all of council vote on the final, or, whatever
So
the
we may-
process.
Yeah, so we may be only limited by whatever we can put on a piece of metal that size, is what I guess.
Well, I can go back and tell you and give you the writing from the state accommodations tax that tells you.
And/or the DOT. We may need to contact DOT and find out what restrictions they have on a sign. But, certainly, it's probably a good time to look at some new
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. And that symbol, what does that stand for?
And I don't know how much time would be expended on it, but I guess clearly, as you indicated, you may have some more pressing priorities, but that's something to look at.
Absolutely. If there's an interest in revisiting that, we'll find, when we, as time allows, we can, consider, we'll talk to staff and get some input about, do we hire a consultant? Do we, maybe we'll talk to the chamber and they can maybe give an assist on that. So if there's an interest, it sounds like there is an interest in maybe revisiting it, then we'll pursue it as time allows and as the other priorities allow us to pursue that.
Okay, I would, this is just, I'm speaking only for myself right here, but I don't think we need a consultant
No, I think we
to
can,
use what we put on our sign. I think we ought to be able to do that
I think
internally.
we can get something better from the students at the high school.
All right. Anything else on that
sir.
signage? If not, line item 9 on our agenda is Tommy Long.
Thank you, sir. When the fairgrounds was converted to the training grounds, it was stated by Mr. Livingston that anytime we had additional demolition or construction take place, we need to bring it before council. So I'm here tonight to present, and he's got the picture up on, I think y'all got this in your packet as well. This is kind of an outline of some of the different props we're looking at doing at the training center. However, we're actively involved right now in getting our pump testing facility, which is going to be 4 2,000-gallon tanks that's going to be buried in the ground to do our pump testing for our trucks and also do various other trainings, exercises at the location. And I believe y'all got this picture in your packet as well.
Yeah.
This is not what it's going to actually look like, but it's close. These are some underground tanks out of Isay, out in off of what's the name of that road? Alexander Road. The eggplant, better known as the eggplant. They got some underground tanks, so this is actually their tanks. But these are similar to what ours would look like. It'll have the same tops on the top, but it will be 4 of them versus 2. And basically what we do with those tanks is each year we have to test every fire engine in our fleet, and it takes us 4 days to do that. And having this setup that we're designing, we can test 2 trucks at a time, so we can cut that down to 2 days of testing trucks, because we got about 30 trucks I have to test. So they can actually, we'll be able to test 2 trucks at a time, and we can get them done in 2 days versus 4 days. But we also will use these tanks doing other training exercises out there as well. But I'm here tonight just basically to get your approval to move forward with getting that project done. We didn't realize that that was part of the agreement until I went back and looked at the minutes, that we needed to bring this before council. So we're kind of a little bit ahead of ourselves, but we wanted to get council's approval to move forward with that project out there. On the layout you got, and I'm gonna come up and point out where it's close to where I had it initially, which was right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually gonna be a little bit closer up, so it's gonna be moving up into this area. Back, it's gonna actually be, I had it here, but it's gonna be like right here.
Okay.
So
You gonna be able to put 4 there?
we will, it's a lot bigger space than what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
This for me, which one is it? On that, on right there?
Like that, right there. So I initially looked at it,
I got
so
you.
it's gonna actually be back this.
In 4 areas.
The reason we kind of moved it up a little bit is gonna save us on gravel expenses, because we're gonna gravel the road, a circle drive right there, to where the trucks can circle around once they through the test.
What are these other 3 gray buildings along that straight line?
Okay, that is gonna be, well, this is what we was envisioning, having 3 little small houses built at different stages, so we could actually take new firefighters inside of those houses, and they could see how a house looks without sheetrock. and then you could have another house at a different level, and then you have one that's basically finished, so they could understand when you fighting fire, if you bust through sheetrock, you may go into wiring or whatever it may be, so they were kind of having a vision of how those houses are built in 3 different stages. That straight line is just a power line, a simulated power line, so we could actually say, we could actually have that power line on the ground, or do it as a prop and have it attached to one of the houses. So that's what that straight line is.
Where do the buildings under the CPST proposal, where are they?
It's gonna go up where you see the driver training over there. It says driver training, the big white square, that's where the new building would be. Because we actually are incorporating the driving pad into that project. That's part of that project as well. So it would be in that, up toward the front of the road, closest to the road. And then the driving pad is actually behind the new building, where it's gonna be. Of course, we already got the burn building out there, and I don't know if you can really see good on the drawing, but the burn building is already out there, and we are working on getting a simulated highway over to the right side of the burn building, so we can simulate interstate wrecks and different things on it. And we're working with the natural gas and propane companies now to try to get our flammable gases props built out there, which won't be any cost to us. They're willing to help us do those for no cost. But the main reason I'm here tonight is to get approval to move forward with the pump testing part of the plan. Oh, okay.
Mr. Reader,
Yeah,
how you feeling about this?
I just want to find out, is this already been paid for?
I think Thomas
It's
said
already
it's
budgeted.
in the budget, but they have to get council approval to actually expend the funds.
Okay.
Tommy,
I-
am I correct in saying this was approved in our 22-23 budget, but with the caveat that you needed council approval to expend those funds?
I just need approval to move forward to install it, basically. We've had an industry help us fund. The tanks have already been made, so already got the tanks. We're just in the process of getting them installed.
So we're not needing a
I'm not needing no money.
Oh,
No.
revision.
okay.
No.
We just need,
I
We
see.
got the local industry is helping us to complete this project.
what
do we need to
what
move?
industry?
What's,
West Fraser?
the,
We had several fires out there in a short span, and we were to get back, so the departments that responded out there, first thing we do with the departments, a donation, we come together and come up with this idea, and then response to the project.
That was very good. Good
so
corporate
what I'm doing as we build these props is I'm having some signs made. So beside that prop, we have a sign made that this prop was helped funded by whoever helped fund it.
Okay.
Particular prop.
So you need all the council? It needs to go before full council?
When you read the minutes, this was a commitment council made to Public Safety Department and the volunteer firefighters. And it says something that we interpret to mean construction or demolition needs to come back to council.
And I'm not sure if it necessarily means construction, if they consider that construction. I was thinking more of a building
Yeah.
or tearing down a building. So to be on the safe side, we wanted to present it to you and let you make that decision.
Okay. Well, clearly, if it requires a vote of council, well, what we could do is recommend out of the executive committee that council approve it.
Okay.
And it could be voted on. So do we have a motion
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
recommend approval of this?
Yes, I make that motion.
Okay, and I'll second it. And obviously, then that makes it a unanimous approval.
Thank you very much.
That we'll bring it forward with a recommendation to full council for them to take action.
Right, thank you.
Okay? All right, at this point, we've got public comments. The only public comments were from Mike Pisano, and Mike's already given us his comments. So with that, being said, item 11 are comments from committee members. I guess it starts with you.
Yeah. I'm glad to see everybody out. I think it was a very productive meeting, and I'm glad to see that we are moving forward. So I like to continue to move forward and put Newberry where it needs to be.
Very good, and I would totally agree, and it's great to have all the different groups, organizations within county council that came forward, within the county that came forward tonight with needs. The thing that I think hit me is, as much as anything, is the growth in building. All these building projects that are coming in, residential projects, building permits, inspections. That's something we've been pretty stagnant for many years, and all of a sudden, I think we're starting to see the growth that's been occurring around us in other communities, and we've got to prepare for that. And so we need to give our building, zoning, and inspection department full support. And of course, that building also becomes a challenge for the emergency services personnel for their response. So, it's something we have to prepare for. We don't need to just wait until it happens to us.
Yeah, and we need a sign to reflect that.
That's right. We just need to know what size.
That's right.
With that being said, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yep, so
We're adjourned. Thank you.
it's what? Oh, yeah, that needs to change.